Coming up on the program, do you want to plant bush beans or pole beans? There's pluses and minuses to both of them, and we'll discuss them. And we're going to harvest our radishes that we started underneath our cold frame and thinning some beets. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored in part by, for all your non-GMO, heirloom, organic, vegetable, flowers, and herb seeds, visit dollarseed.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil. With their new garden blend, improving soil structure in clay and sandy soil, great for creating new garden beds. Also available from Sioux's, pre-filled trays and pots with professional potting soil mix or organic rice hull-based potting soil mix. Bag and bulk of certified leaf compost also available. Visit SiouxGrowingSupply.com. Don't poison your soil with municipal water. Attach a body, mind, and soil hose and filter. Free shipping exclusively through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Just click on the body, mind, and soil icon. Authentic Haven brand soil conditioner for the home gardener. Easy to brew, 100% organic. Visit ManureTea.com. Rain Reserve. Reserving your rain, preserving our future. Rain Reserve, manufacturing of rainwater capturing capabilities. Visit rainreserve.com and use coupon code RAIN2016 to save 10% on your total purchase. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. We're in the large garden and we're going to plant and talk about the benefits of growing bush beans as well as pole beans. And there's some disadvantages to both as well. And it really determines what your growing situation is, to which would be best for you, or maybe both. So let's talk about the bush beans first here. We're going to plant some royalty burgundy bush beans. Now these are the purple pod beans that are edible, and at the time of cooking they will change their pigmentation back to green. It's not a genetically modification of it whatsoever, just the way it's designed. The plant designs it. Now there's green beans, there's purple pod beans, which is what we'll be planting, as well as there's a golden wax bean, which is a yellow bean, and they'll all grow virtually the same here. We've got this bed here that's about 4 foot wide and 10 foot long. Average bed here. We've mulched it with leaves very heavily last fall, and we're looking at 2.5 to 3 inches based on where we're at of leaves, which is fine. Creates a tremendous mulch, holds a tremendous amount of water, moisture in the soil, and does a pretty good job of reducing the amount of weeding that one needs to do. Now, with the bush beans take about 40 to 60 days to get to a mature state, to where they begin and they develop the pods that you can harvest. Now you can harvest the pods when they're very small, or you can wait until they are relatively large. Keep in mind that if you wait until they're relatively large, the seed in that pod is going to be relatively large as well. So you want to harvest in more of a immature state of where the seed is, rather than having to try to gnaw through a pod that has a very dense or a very thick seed in it. Again, after that, when they begin to put the pods on, and these plants will reach 12 to 18 inches high, and they will, once they begin putting pods on, they'll put pods on a regular basis for about another 4 to 6 weeks. The key thing here is if you continually harvest off the plants. If you forget about the beans and let them go, they will put on one batch of pods and make them very large, and then that'll be it for the plant, because the plant is designed to create a seed, not an edible pod for you, but a seed nature has designed that once it puts on enough or creates enough seeds on the pods that is on the plant, it'll stop producing, drop those seeds, and the next generation will form if humans were not involved. So keep that in mind. Continual harvest, and you can stretch that length of time that that plant will produce on the edible portion. Now you want it to be preferably full sun, but these will grow very well in partial shade. The production may not be as high as they would be in full sun. And again, they need adequate moisture. Fertilizer requirements, not so much. Beans are a legume and they produce their own nitrogen through their roots and the symbiotic relationship with the atmosphere and everything. So you really don't need a whole lot, if any, fertilizer. They will do relatively well on their own. So we're going to talk about planting these bush beans, and then we'll talk about maybe you want to go pole bean growing instead of the bush beans. So with the bush beans here, we're going to space them. Now, based on, you can go across the row, you can go down the row, whatever it works for your growing situation. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to be spacing them. I want a little off the fence here. I'm going to be spacing them about 18 inches apart. So that's one row there. Next row is going to be here, and on. You want to plant your beans about 4 inches apart. That'll give them plenty of room. Now, some people will just cascade the beans in the row and just let them grow. I recommend getting them some spacing so they're not competing so heavily with one another, so you can get the maximum production out of your bean plant as you possibly can. If you put 50 beans in a 4-foot row, such as this, if you were just going to cascade the beans in the row here, you're really defeating the purpose, because the beans are going to compete so heavily with one another that the production will hurt on that. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm removing the leaves, and then I'm just going to make a row here. The soil is very, very moist because the heavy leaves that were on top of it, which is fine. Now I'll get my beans, and just going to plant them. We'll start here, about every 4 inches. We'll go, a couple extra ones fall in there, it's not going to hurt. But this way you can get a good spacing on them, and they will grow. I can get one more down there, maximize the space here. They'll grow to their maximum potential. So I'm going to get all of these planted, then we'll come back and we'll talk about maybe the advantages of, instead of growing bush beans, growing pole beans. All right, so I got the beans planted here. We got 5 rows of about 8 beans per row, so that'll give us a good amount of beans in this little bed here. Now, bush beans also do incredibly well in containers if you don't have a lot of ground space available. A 7, 10, even larger gallon container you can put a lot of beans in, bush beans in one of those containers and put on your porch, patio, or deck and get a harvest continuous for a good chunk of the summer. So maybe you want to look at pole beans instead of bush beans. Well, let's talk about pole beans here. Pole beans take about 60 to 70 days to get to a mature state of pods producing. After that, they will produce until frost or the cold kills them. That's one of the advantages. You need something vertical. Now, this trellis here is about 6.5, 7 foot tall. Not quite tall enough for a lot of the pole beans. They can grow 8 to 12 feet tall if given in the right conditions. Now, they'll grow and they'll loop over the backside here and grow down. Now, again, we're in partial shade, so they may not be as prolific as they would in full sun. Now, this trellis is simply some wooden stakes here with bamboo and some strings, easily constructed. There'll be a link in the show notes for you if you want to see how we put this one together. It doesn't have to be that elaborate. You can simply use a fence like behind me. If you have a cattle panel or a hog panel, you can put that vertical. Now, if you use an adjacent fence, you want to make sure the neighbors are okay with you using it, or you might want to make a little deal. You can take what's on your side type of thing. You can also be very creative with stuff you already have on your property in your house, such as this. This is the bottom of a baby crib, and it works very well for not only pole beans, but other climbing items such as cucumbers. But the disadvantage is it's very short. It's only about 4 foot tall, 3.5, 4 foot tall. So maybe you need 2 of these to get a good height on it. But this works very well. You got the spacings already in there. Put a fence post or a couple wooden stakes behind it. Can be very efficient. Even if you're going to do pole beans in a container, you can simply put this behind the container and allow the beans to grow vertical. So whether you're growing pole beans or bush beans, it really determines and dictates what type of growing conditions you have, the space you have available, and what you're looking to get out of those bean plantings. So you might be limited on space and you still want to grow beans, pole beans, or bush beans, and you can still do that on a porch, patio, or deck. And we've got two different devices here. We're going to grow our beans, and we're going to grow some Kentucky Wonder pole beans here in a device that we used or created a couple years ago. It's one of those water things, a water coolers tops. You know, we didn't take this. You're supposed to return this. Somebody was throwing it out and we picked it up. So we turned it into a self-watering container to where the water will wick up. And I've got this rubber mesh fencing on it so that the beans can climb up it. Now, we used to use this for cucumbers, and we're going to change things up, and we're going to grow pole beans here next to the house. Now, all I'm going to do here to revitalize this soil, we do have, you know, it's about a little over half full. I'm just going to loosen up the soil, which it's already moist here. Not any weeds in here to speak of. So get that all loose. And I'm actually going to kind of go down a little bit farther just to make sure, which this is just potting soil and compost. Well, this is compost in this self-watering container. Now, if you're going to do this, whether you use a container or any type of container, number one, you want to make sure it has drainage holes in it. Now, for this instance, this is a self-watering container, and it does have an overflow spout. So if too much water gets in there, it will overflow. Now, you also want to, what you put in your container soil-wise really is important here. We're going to use pure compost, very good to use. Now, some people will use potting soil, which doesn't really have a lot of nutrient value unless it's got a slow release fertilizer in it. And other people will use cocoa coir and peat moss and mix it in with their potting soil or their compost. Now, cocoa coir and peat moss have absolutely no nutrient value. It's simply used as a water retention material. It's like a sponge. It'll hold the water. Vermiculite and perlite, those white pellets in the potting soil, that is to help keep the soil loose and aerated. So keep that in mind if you're going to create a mixture for your container garden. So we're just going to take some compost here. We're going to top this off. Whoa. Won't need a whole lot, but I do want to get enough in there. I'm not going to fill it completely full because I do want a little bit when it does rain the water can go in here and not flush everything out. Now, I'm not going to add any fertilizer to this because beans, as I talked about, beans really don't have a whole lot of fertilizer requirements. Plus, we're using good certified leaf compost from Sioux Growing Supply, so we won't need any fertilizer. So we're going to use Kentucky Wonder pole beans. Now, in a container like this with the pole beans, you can go every 4 inches, and that's what I'm going to do. This is our water spout whenever we put our fencing up. And it's just really simple. I'm going to put them as much as space is available in the center here. I'm just going to kind of put them on the outer edge. I'm going to put them about a ½ inch down. Now, first thing you want to do, you want to figure out what you got here before you start shoving seeds in the soil so you can see. Now, you can overseed this and go back and thin it out if you want. That doesn't look too bad. I am going to put 2 in the center just because I can have the space, and we'll go that route. Now I'm just going to shove them down. Usually when you're spacing these, ½ inch would be kind of like to your first knuckle. That would be adequate depth for the seeds here, and then we're good to go on that. And we'll just cover them up and put the cage around it, and about 60 to 70 days, these will begin to produce beans for us. There we go. So any kind of device, you can just have a container there and have a trellis behind it. So now maybe you don't want to grow pole beans, maybe you just want to do bush beans, and we have that set up that we can show how easy that is to do right outside your kitchen window as well. So if you want to do bush beans, a container like this works very well. A grow bag will work. Even a 5-gallon bucket with holes drilled in the bottom would be adequate as well. Now the thing with the you could do pole beans in this here and just set it up and put a trellis behind it. It works very well. Now this is about an 8-inch wide by 20 inches long container here. It does have a drainage hole in it. Now the base here is just some leftover potting soil that we had in the house with some seeds after we transplanted them. So it's not got a whole lot of nutrient density to it. Now this white stuff here, that's that perlite I talked about. So this is just the bottom 1 to 2 inches, and all we're going to do is we're going to fill it up with compost here, and then we're going to plant our golden wax beans. Let's do it this way. Again, you don't want to fill it all the way level full, but you do want to get you want to leave about a 1/2 inch lip, just so when it waters, because this is not a self-watering container here, so when it rains you don't want it to flow out onto your patio deck porch. Now you could put a tray underneath this if you wanted to keep it from staining your area. There we go. All right, we'll just use it all then. Worked out well. Okay, now with bush beans, let me finish this up here. Bush beans, we want to plant them just like we did the pole beans there, but about 4 inches spacing. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take and go around the edge here just to push that down just a little bit. Okay. Our golden wax bush beans here. With this here, we can get quite a few beans in this container. Now I'm just going to go, being that, I'm going to intensely plant this, and that's something that where you can put a whole lot in a little spot, just like this bag of leaf lettuce here. That is intensely planted. There's hundreds and hundreds of leaf lettuce plants in this container, and it's just densely planted so we can get as much in a small area as we possibly can. And that's what I'm going to do with this. We're going to grow a little bit smaller because we're during the hottest portion of the day. The sun is behind the house there. It comes up, we'll get the morning sun here. So I'm going to intensely plant this and just putting them, if the recommended spacing, and I'll just give you an example, if the recommended spacing is 4 inches, we'll go 2 3/4 inches just to try to pack more in to a area here. You kind of want to just keep 2 rows because they are going to get bushy here, and I don't want to put them so tight that they're going to hamper the growth of the other beans. And that's pretty much it there. And we're just going to poke the beans in a 1/2 inch. We'll water them in when the soil begins to dry out. Now you can add mulch to this to help suppress the water, to help hold the moisture in. And it's that simple. We'll slide it right there, and in about 40 days we will have beans coming up on our porch. So it's very easy. You don't have to have a garden of any size to grow stuff. You can simply do it on a porch. We've got bush beans here, we've got pole beans behind me, we've got intensely planted leaf lettuce, we got leeks here as well. So, and we got Swiss chard and the rail planter back there. So you can have a lot of stuff in a very small area. Remove the cold frame since it's been warm enough now, and we're getting in the later portions of spring. Now this bed here will be partial peppers in this area and tomatoes in this area. So that's why we're kind of working on getting this harvested. We've worked the bed. We've got 6 tomatoes that will go there, and we've probably got 2, 4, maybe 6, more likely 4 peppers that will go where these radishes are at. I've got some radishes here, and I'm not really, these are radishes as well. They're not maturing. These are the icicles radishes that take a little bit longer, so we may just get rid of those when it's time to plant the peppers in this area, but we'll leave them in the ground as long as possible. So we've got these red radishes here that I'm going to harvest. Very pretty looking radishes there. Radishes the average radish will take about 25 to 35 days, give or take, based on the conditions. Obviously, if it's much colder, they're going to take a little bit longer, just like most vegetables that are cool weather crops. You get a little bit of warmth, they're going to speed up. Now, if we would leave these in the ground, they would put a flower on it. They would stop the bulb growth and put a top growth on it and become a flower. And those flowers would have edible pods on them, pods that we'll put on, and you could actually eat those, and they taste just like the radish root. But if you leave those be, they will dry out, and you'll have 5, 6, 8 radish seeds in each one of those pods. So you don't want to leave these in the ground too long because they will start to they will bolt. Some of these are really, there's a few small ones. Most of these are very nice looking radishes here with the white bottom and the red top. That's a purple radish there. That's interesting. I'm just going to harvest all of these to clear out this row. These are very tasty. I've tried one already. I've got two more here. Now, if you're going to, oh, there's a big one. There's some more. If you're going to keep these in the fridge for, let's say, a couple of days, you want to put them in an airtight container because they will begin to dry out. If you just let this sit on the counter just like this, within about 12 to 24 hours, it'll be shriveled up and almost nothing. Another thing, go ahead and trim the tops off because that will start sucking some of the energy out of the bulb as well. The tops are edible. It's not something that we find relatively tasty, but you can put them in stir fries. So before we do anything, we're going to trim the tops off of these, and then we can store them. You can clean the roots off if you want to. But nice little radish here that we've grown very easily. And again, we will plant these in the fall. About 30, we can plant and probably get 2 crops in the fall on the radishes. Now, with our grow bags over here, we're going to thin some beets out. We want to get that done as well. All right, these are our giant 60-gallon grow bags, courtesy of Root Maker. I've put this Rubbermaid fencing over top of it because for some reason we've got something that is getting in here and digging cavities, whether that's a bird, whether that's squirrels, I don't know. But the beets here, they've not really affected the beets, nor do I want them to affect the beets. So what I've got here, I've put dry grass clippings on top of these 2 beds adjacent to the beet bed, which will soon be peppers and tomatoes, just to start to build up moisture consistency in the soil. With the beets here, I've gently, lightly covered it with some dry grass clippings to the effect where I'm not smothering out the plant. Now, if you get in here, you can see each one of these seeds that I planted is actually a cluster. This beet seeds and Swiss chard are similar in family, and a seed of beet will actually contain 4, maybe 3 to 4, and maybe 5 plants or seeds inside that cluster. So we have to come in here and we need to thin them out to 1 plant per area. Otherwise, they're going to compete for energy and you're just going to get marble-sized beets or very small beets if you went in here and thinned them out. And this is the same whether you do it in raised bed, traditional ground garden, or a container garden. You thin them out so you can get that baseball-sized beet that we all want. And we'll just go in here, and it's really, you can go in here and find the weakest of the bunch, the largest one, whatever it is. Mainly, I'm just going to go in here and with a shears or scissors that are sharp and careful, we'll just cut that back. These are edible. Nothing wrong with eating the beets, just like baby green beets that you would get in a salad mix at the store. Now you want to get in here and you actually want to physically cut to remove all but one of these clusters of beets, these beet seedlings. If you go in here and start pulling them out, you're going to disrupt the roots of adjacent plants or the one that you're wanting to keep, and that can greatly disrupt and affect the bulb and the growth, and you may even kill it off because you're tearing roots out from other plants. So just go in there and just gently snip away until you are left with 1 plant per section or per cluster that once were. So I'm going to go through here and thin them out. This is something you need to do in order to get successful beets, and that may be why you're not getting the beet size that you think you should. One may be not enough moisture or nutrients in the soil, and secondly can be that we're not thinning the beets out in order to focus all the energy on 1 beet to allow it to bulb up properly. Beets will take about 67 days to reach maturity. These, I believe, are Detroit red beet. So we've got some other varieties that we'll be planting, but I got to thin these out. Thanks for watching. Join us again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joy Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.